first. Oh, Lord, let's pray.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the council meeting for Monday, November 8th. We'll now call tonight's meeting to order. Thank you to everyone at home for tuning in. At this time, we'll turn the meeting over to Councilmember Lundy for the opening prayer.
All right, thank you. Let us pray. So, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Father God, for our residents and for all those who are around the table who you have placed in leadership, Father God. We ask that we would understand that we are here to not only represent and be in community with our residents, but with one another, Father God. And so, Father God, we just ask that you would meet everyone around this table and at the sound of my voice, at the point of their need, Father God. And just thank you for this opportunity that you have given each one of us to lead well, to lead responsibly, and to do it all with the understanding that we are not our own. And it is in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Councilmember Lundy. At this time, for those who are able to, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, and good evening. Mr. McGrory, before we proceed to the approval of the agenda, I think this may be a mistake, an announcement of a closed session. We haven't had one.
It's just a placeholder.
Okay, since the last meeting, so just scratch that. At this moment, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move.
Moved by Councilmember Blunt. Is there a second?
Second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Lundy. I'll call for the vote. I'm sorry, any
Mayor?
discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out two carryover items,
Yep.
if I may, unless you've got it, Councilmember Rao. The Marion Bright Bike Ride event was one that I think you wanted to follow up to approve formally the town's support, if you wish to do that. And then 58th Avenue, I did not see that on both agendas, if you still want that covered, the grant update on that. That was a carryover from the work session.
Yes,
That's up to
thank you. And then
Mr. McGrory, did you mention the minutes approval too?
It's on here.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
it's
on
on there.
here.
Mayor James mentioned the minutes as well for this regular session.
Yep, for October 18th. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rao?
Thank you, Mayor James. I would like to propose to amend the agenda under unfinished business, ARPA visioning session to be added.
Any other items or additions? All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. At this time, I believe Ms. Webb is joining us virtually for the town audit presentation.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you,
I
Mayor.
heard you call point of order. Can I say one quick thing? I'm so
Sorry,
sorry.
I'm sorry, can you please mute so we don't give feedback, Mr.
Yeah.
McGrory? Okay,
Muted.
go ahead, Councilmember Lundy.
I'm so sorry. I think this is very important. Councilmember Blunt did bring it to my attention, and I've omitted to forget to do this. And so at this time, the town of Bladensburg would like to acknowledge and have a moment of silence for General Colin Powell, who recently transitioned. And so if you would indulge me, could we do that at this time?
We did that at the last meeting. You wanted to do it again tonight?
Oh,
Yeah, when you prayed at the last,
Oh,
the October 18th
okay,
meeting,
I just saw it
it's in
here.
the minutes, yeah, and we also
Okay.
did the moment
Okay,
of
all right.
silence.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you,
but
Ms.
no,
White.
thank you for thinking about that. That is important. I'm sorry, Mr. McGrory?
Hang on. Ms. Webb, sorry, I've got, the transitions back and forth from unmuting you are somewhat awkward. So when I stop talking, we're going to pause a moment, and then you'll have the con. So hang on, bear with me one moment.
You ready for me? Okay. All right, so I'm going to walk you guys through the fiscal year 21 audit for the town of Bladensburg, and I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. Says the host disabled.
Rick, can you enable her to share her screen?
Looks like you're up.
Go ahead.
There we go.
Want to try again?
Perfect. Yep, thank you. Okay. So the audit for fiscal year 21, oh gosh, that feedback is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm going to start here at the independent auditor's report. I like to remind everybody when we're doing the audit that these are management's financial statements. These aren't the auditor's financial statements. All we do as the auditors is express an opinion on those financial statements. So you'll see at the top of the second page here, under the opinions, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the town. So this is what's known as a clean audit opinion. So congratulations on that. I did highlight here the date, October 27th. The state requires you to submit the audit and the uniform financial report by October 31st each year. And so all of that was submitted, just so you are aware of that. The next several pages of the financial statements are what's known as management's discussion and analysis. This Vito helps put together, and we're going to skip right through that because it really summarizes the financial statements that we're going to talk about in detail. So I'm going to scroll through to Exhibit A. So Exhibit A1 is the statement of net position. And you'll see here we have two columns. The first column is the fiscal year 21 results, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. But the prior year results are in here so you can kind of get a sense of the trends of what's going on with the town. So you will see about halfway down the page, the town of Bladensburg at June 30, 2021 had total assets of $9,347,000. And you'll see if you look up a couple lines, most of that is current assets, $6.9 million. And of that $6.9 million, most of that represents investments, almost $6.5 million of investments. And you'll see if you look at it compared to the prior year, it's largely a result of the increase in the investment balance from year to year. You also have some capital assets, which include buildings and equipment, things like that. That's about $2.4 million. All organizations, all municipalities have liabilities at the end of the year. So for your town, you have about $200,000 of accounts payable, accrued compensated absences about $526,000. You have some current portion of long-term debt that we're going to talk about $98,000. So your total current liabilities for last year, $972,000. And your biggest liability, of course, is that net pension liability. As you all know, we're part of the state retirement plan, and so the $2.5 million is the net pension liability at the end of June. So our total liabilities for the year were $3,672,000. You take the difference between our assets and deferred outflows and subtract those liabilities, and you see that at the end of the year, the net position of the town was a little over $6 million. So people ask me all the time, what does that mean? What that means in non-accounting speak is that you have $6 million of reserves. The one thing I will caution you is you see here we have a couple of different categories. So invested in capital assets, that's not available to spend, right? So those are tied up in our capital assets, 0.3 million. We also have some restricted funds, 479,000. So those can only be spent for a particular purpose. So really your unrestricted net position is what's generally kind of your operating reserves, 3.2 million. So Exhibit A2 is a statement of program activities. If this were a for-profit, this would be your income statement, right? What it does is it shows all of your revenues and all of your expenses. In GASB, in their infinite wisdom, the standard setting board for municipalities decided to make it a little confusing. You start with your expenses. So for fiscal year 21, the town of Bladensburg had $6.1 million of expenses. So how did they fund those expenses? That's what this statement of program activities reflects. So we had 118,000 of charges for services. We do receive some operating grants and contributions, a little over 1.1 million. And so you see here we have a deficit, right? $4.9 million. So what we do is we have taxes to offset that deficit. So you guys had state shared taxes, which is your income taxes, about 632,000. Property taxes, 4.6 million. You have some interest and some miscellaneous revenues down here. So your total general revenues for last year, 5.95 million. So overall last year, you had a positive change in net position of $421,000. So while it was COVID, a pretty good year for the town. Exhibit A3, we're going to skip. That's just the prior year statement of program activities. It's in there so you can kind of take a look. So now you have the second set of financial statements, which are the fund level financial statements. So the fund level financial statements are similar to how you budget, right? Where everything is an expenditure. So there is no debt on a fund level financial statement. There's no fixed assets. So those are the main differences. So you guys, your town has two funds. You have the general fund and the special revenue fund. And then over here on the right, we have our total column. So very similar, everything except the fixed assets. We have $6.9 million of total assets, $385,000 of total liabilities. The difference between those is our fund balance of $6.4 million. And you'll see here some categories are broken down a little bit more: non-spendable, restricted, assigned, committed, and then your unassigned, which means it can be spent for any particular purpose, almost 4.6 million. There's a little reconciliation between those two statements here at the bottom. And then A6, Exhibit A6 is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So this is your income statement on a fund level. So you'll see here, same thing, we have two columns, one for each of the funds. And so your total revenues on the fund level, a little over 6.2 million. Your total expenditures, 5,685,000. So your excess of expenditures over revenues, about $534,000 on the fund level. Again, a positive year for the town. Exhibit A8 is the reconciliation, as I mentioned, between those two, the two sets of financial statements. Exhibit A9, management went through these pretty closely with our staff. These are what's known as the notes to the financial statements. So it gives you in written words sort of some explanations for things that are going on the financial statement. So a lot of the first couple pages are just accounting policies and just the nature of the different funds and how everything connects together. So the first note that I just wanted to point out was, scrolling here, I apologize for scrolling. capital assets. So we touched upon it briefly, that your town has $2.4 million of capital assets, but I kind of always like to point out sort of what the breakout is. So you have land and you have buildings, equipment, and improvements to the buildings, and computer software. And then of course you have accumulated depreciation on all of those items. And so the 2.4 is a net amount. I do also like to point out that the town has debt, which is not unusual for a town of your size, but you do have some long-term commitments related to that debt, and that's best shown in the chart here on the second page. So you still have a bond payable at the end of June, about $173,000. We have some leases, about $88,000 left on those. And then our accrued compensated absences is considered long-term debt, so it gets included here. And then this column on the right shows you what your current year, so fiscal year 22 commitment is. So you have to pay $98,000 in the current year. As I mentioned, the restricted fund balance, these are where the descriptions are of what's included in each of those categories of fund balance. Just a reminder that the town has established a reserve fund in the amount of $750,000 for emergencies. You do have a projected use of the fund balance in order to balance your fiscal year 22 budget of about $536,000. And then, as we talked about, the restricted monies relate to highway user and the seized assets. The retirement plan, the state retirement plan, has several pages of notes required related to that. Just the main point being that at this time, the town has a liability of a little over $2.5 million. And then I heard earlier in your discussion, you were talking about the American Rescue Plan Act, and I think everybody at this point is very familiar with some of the circumstances surrounding that. But it is disclosed as a subsequent event because the town did receive almost $2.5 million in August 2021. And just a reminder that those funds have to be expended by December 31st, 2024. There are a couple required supplementary schedules, and the one that I always think is probably the most useful for the leaders of a town is this budget to actual schedule, because it really is kind of your report card on how you did budgeting, right? And so you'll see on the revenue side of things, you guys were very conservative in the way you budgeted, and your revenues came in much higher than anticipated, which I think is part of the reason why you had a really good year. So some of the biggest ones were real estate taxes, $3.8 million. So you had, $221,000 more than budget come in. Same thing with income taxes. Income taxes were $591,000 last year. Highway user revenue was another one with a large budget variance, but always positive budget variances. And then you did get some county funding that was not anticipated when the budget was prepared. So here at the bottom, you'll see your total revenues budgeted $6,264,000. What actually came in was $6.2 million, but that's within 1% of the budget. So that was a pretty good job there. The same thing on the expenditure side. Again, you guys budgeted conservatively, and then your actual amounts came in less than budget on almost every category. So you'll see all the way down the line, there were some pretty large variances, but to the positive side of things. So your overall expenditures budgeted last year were $6,763,000. Your actual were $5,685,000. So $1 million difference. Exhibit B2 is just a little bit more information on the budget to actual schedule. Exhibit B3 and B4 are required information on your participation in the state retirement plan. And so you'll see here again, it's a lot of the same information that was covered in the footnote. Your share of the net pension liability is $2,537,000, and then your current year contribution that was contractually required, $249,000, and you'll see that you guys made that payment here. So that was a lot of information in a very short period of time. So I'm happy to go over any questions anyone might have on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let me mute myself just so we don't have the feedback.
Are we muted? Okay. Thank you, Mr. McCrory. I wanted to thank you, Ms. Webb, for walking us through that, and just open up the floor for questions from the team for Ms. Webb. And while people are thinking of questions, I just want to make sure this is correct information. Ms. Webb, I was looking at Exhibit A9 and just want to make sure with the ARPA funding, as long as we incur the expenses before December 31st, 2024, we have until December 31st, 2026 to be reimbursed? Because I thought we had to do everything, including the reimbursement process, by December 31st, 2024.
No, so as long as they're encumbered by 2024, they give you a little wiggle room to finish things. So I think it's especially important with construction projects, so sometimes things aren't always finished right on the dot, but as long as you've signed the contract for it to be finished, you have until December 31st, 2026. But you really want to try and stay within that 2024 date.
Is it clear? Okay. Thank you for that response. And so, Mr. Tonelli, was there anything else you wanted to add before we move forward with the agenda? I think the one thing to note, though, don't we have to vote to approve the audit or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I just noticed it wasn't under financial, and I'm sorry, I should have caught that earlier. But any additions? I'm glad to see once again we have a clean audit. That is critical. But any feedback?
No, I mean, it's, we got the process streamlined. I mean, it is a very tight timeline when you're trying to close out the year. You have 3 months, and you're still closing out the year, and you're starting the audit at the same time. So once we think we have everything to them, then a couple more expenses may come in that were dated the previous fiscal year. So it's just, when we talk about July, that 13th month, we're also doing the audit at the same time. We're trying to reconcile everything coming in. So the state of Maryland, if the deadline was December 31st, it would be a lot easier, I would think. But, it's what it is, and it's an easy process. I mean, we go through this every year, and they're great to work with. They, since we contracted with them, they ask questions that weren't asked before, and they look for things that, it's good to have a new set of eyes on it. And this audit report, had a couple people ask me, you didn't do an audit last year because at the top of the audit says, for years ended June 30, 2021 and 2020. And I said, no, it's the FY21 audit, but the 20 schedule's in there as well for comparison purposes. So you have a 2-year comparison purposes. So it's, but it's really good information. So.
Thank you for that, Mr. Tonelli. So I do, again, want to thank you, Ms. Webb, and just ask the council if we could have a vote to amend the agenda, because we do have to vote to approve the audit, and that would have to go under financial business.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead,
You
Councilmember.
might, when it says the bus shelter income, can you just, what is?
We
I think I
have,
know what it is, but.
yeah, we have a contract with Signal Communications, I think, and we used to get advertising revenue for the panels on the bus shelters in town.
Okay, gotcha.
And I contacted them last year and the year before saying, hey, we're not seeing any revenue. And they pretty much said it's a difficult area to sell advertising in. and I think that they're getting out of it. I'm not sure how much they're into it, and I think a contract has to be renewed. I'm not 100% sure if it is up for renewal now, but at one point we were getting over $4,000, $5,000, then went down to $2,000, then $1,000, then we just didn't see any more revenues from it.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Blunt? Okay.
Thank you.
And with that, is there a motion to amend the agenda to add audit approval to financial business?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Lundy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Rao. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Ms. Weber. We appreciate your help and the help of your team.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And next on the agenda, we have the approval of minutes, and those were provided to us by the very Newtown clerk, Mr. Charnovich. And so we do have the October 18th minutes for the council meeting for approval. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Rout. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Councilmember Lundy. Any further discussion? I did notice there was one thing, and I'm trying to get my hands on them. Sorry, I have a few things up here. I think there was a note in there about having approved minutes early on. I'm trying to go from memory, and I apologize, I don't see my, oh, here we go. On page 2, item number 7 was actually tabled, so I would just ask if we could strike that from the minutes, because in the last meeting, I think we got them late, and so we wanted to give everyone time to read the minutes and be ready to approve them at this meeting. So if we could just make that one modification, or
I think
was
the
there a different
modification is to change the word approve to table.
Okay, there we go.
Because there was a motion
Yeah.
to table that, as I recall.
Thank you.
I think that was correct.
Okay. I was going, I don't think we approved those, so. And with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. But thank you, Mr. Charnovich, for jumping right in here, helping us out. And so we want to come back to you for the public comments at this time.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So this month, we received 2 public comments from 2 different residents, which I will read into the record, as I understand is our current practice. The first one is from Susan McCutcheon. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Bladensburg residents. It may be quiet during the S.C. Maglev Federal Railroad Administration pause. We continue to do what we can behind the scenes. The fight is far from over. If anyone receives a letter from the Baltimore-Washington Rapid Rail about environmental or other issues, please be sure to send it to me, tkdmccutch@yahoo.com. The company is pressure campaigning as though the project has been approved. Some homeowner associations and property owners have been upset by the authoritative tone of letters they have received and response deadlines indicated. I have been involved with the Neighborhood Watch relaunch and urge more residents to participate. When residents in the neighborhood stop to talk with us after the niceties, they often start to open up and get real about what they see and how they feel about what goes on in their neighborhoods and in the town. And we inform them about how to become involved beyond their own neighborhoods. It is eye-opening, and I have been learning about Bladensburg outside of my neighborhood, how much we miss even in a small town. Finally, I found a discussion about a wide-ranging, undefined forensic audit at last month's town council meeting to be ludicrous and rather suspicious. To promote a broad, undefined, and expensive audit appears to me to emanate from the undercurrent of ill will and pervasive mistrust among council members that has been fomenting over the past year or so and erupted during and after the recent contentious election. Psychobabble and the quoting of scripture notwithstanding, palpable and raw animosity is running rampant. This kind of exercise is counterproductive and unsupportable. Thank you. Susan McCutcheon. Our second public comment of the month is from town resident Steve Weitz. On Saturday night, October 30th, I heard a loud crash. When I went outside, I saw a red SUV speeding away after it had hit two cars parked on the street in front of 5405 Tilden Road. A neighbor across the street said he saw the big red Durango SUV coming up Tilden Road from the corner of 54th Street and then hit two parked cars. The neighbor said it was recorded on his house security camera, but he could not read the license plate. This was reported to the Bladensburg police, who made a police report. I am asking town residents to report speeding cars and dangerous drivers they may see to our town police. The big SUV hit the first car and broke the left front wheel and broke the steering. It also did damage to the engine. Then it hit the second car and broke the rear axle and smashed in the whole left side of the car. The SUV pushed the car into my neighbor's yard, with the front of the car pushed into my driveway. This is not the first time parked cars have been totally demolished on my street. Cars race up and down Tilden Road all the time. This is very dangerous to many school children and pedestrians on Tilden Road. I am asking the Bladensburg police to put a speed camera on Tilden Road at the corner of 54th Street to ticket speeding cars. I want to thank Councilmember Lundy for all the hard work she has done on many town projects. I also want to thank Councilmember Mendoza for serving on the town council for many years, and I thank him for the work he has done. I hope Councilmember Lundy and Mendoza can continue to work with the town and residents to keep our town moving forward. Thank you, town resident Steve Weitz.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Mayor.
And I hate to bury the headline, Mr. McGrory, but for the benefit of the community, would you mind just doing the formal introduction of our new town clerk? I realized that as he was reading that we kind of buried the headline a bit.
Well, that's very funny. I was going to say closing the barn door after the horse is out, but Rich has already had a featured role here at the council meeting. And so I am going to skip down to item 11B, the introduction of the new town clerk. I just want to note the council heard this when we first talked about Mr. Charnovich in the pre-interview, in my summary to the council of my pre-interview conversation with Mr. Charnovich. I had allotted 15 to 20 minutes to have a pre-chat with Rich about the possibility of his coming to work in the town of Bladensburg. And at the end of 70 minutes, we hadn't run out of things to talk about. So I think it was, he's got a wide-ranging interest and extensive experience in municipal government. In now the start of his third week today of employment at the town of Bladensburg. I cannot say that he has left anything unturned in joining the team here. He's jumped right in, asking all the right questions, and really pulling on the oars with the rest of the leadership team and leading the staff in the front office. So I'm super grateful to have him here to assist, and I just want to say thanks so much for coming and joining us. I thank the council for authorizing his appointment, and we're very glad to have Rich here as an employee of the town of Bladensburg. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Bob.
And again, for the benefit of our residents who are either watching tonight or maybe watching later, Mr. Charnovich, would you mind just giving a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure.
Okay.
I joke with Bob. I won't speak for like an hour on my first meeting for you all. I'll keep within my time frame limit. So my name is Rich Charnovich. As Bob so touched on there. A little personal background about myself. I was born and raised in southwestern Pennsylvania, about an hour south of Pittsburgh. I came to this region of the country in 2010. So I've been in the region now for about 11 years. In those 11 years, I've lived in Maryland, D.C., and now I reside in Virginia. So I've covered all three areas here. So a little bit about how I chose local government. When I was in graduate school, I decided to do an internship in local government. And I immediately, it really caught my eye in that, it's a level of government that is closest to the people. While all levels of government are difficult, local government to me is something where you can make a definitive impact on those you are serving on a day-to-day basis, because you have a direct connection with the people that you're serving. So I had a very interesting start to my career. I finished my graduate degree after going to undergrad, and then I went to be the town manager of a municipality in the west side of Pittsburgh called Robinson by the Pittsburgh Airport. I was there for 6 years. In fact, I was a very young man at that time. I guess I'll age myself, but I started my position there when I was 24 years old. I think I was told at that time I was the youngest municipal administrator in all of Pennsylvania. I don't know if there's any records on that, but I was told that. So I was there 6 years and decided to leave there on my own accord, and then moved to this region. And for 8 years, the second part of my career, I served in Maryland, in Montgomery County, for Somerset, which is located in Chevy Chase. So that I've served as a municipal administrator for 14 total years, and I was served 2 years as an intern, as I mentioned, when I was in graduate school. So I've served a total of 16 total years in local government sector. As Bob mentioned, I'm also a student in my field, you could say. I'm a person who has a constant thirst for knowledge. I'm always trying to find an edge, find an advantage to what I'm trying to accomplish and to achieve. It's great and it's wonderful to be here. One other point, I guess. So when I decided to leave my last position in Somerset willingly, I wanted to explore other options in my personal life, my professional life, things of that nature. I did have a brief stint working for a consulting company before I decided to come to Bladensburg. But I guess my point is, clearly, public service is calling me back. It's one of those things where there was a beautiful prayer was said at the very beginning of today's meeting.
Thank you.
And that maybe there's a higher power out there that is calling me back into service for my fellow humans and citizens. And here I am. I'm looking forward to serving with all of you here in Bladensburg, and to assist everyone and help everybody in the room the best that I can with the skills that I both had in practice, and also all the reading I do in the field. And I hope that I can be a benefit and a value to the community. I think I learned long ago that for me personally, I'm all about being the kind of person who wants to bring value to whatever it is I'm doing, whether it is my occupation, whether it's my family. I want to be a person of value in life. So I hope that I can do that here for Bladensburg and your citizens. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Charnovich. I think from the team, we are already seeing that you're adding tremendous value, so we definitely appreciate all your help so far.
Thank you, Marion.
The next item is the ARPA item that Councilmember Rout had asked us to move to unfinished business. So I'll turn it over to Councilmember Rout.
Thank you, Mayor James. So at the work session, we discussed the progress that has been made as it relates to the ARPA visioning sessions. And Mr. McGrory had just shared, if the council wants me to direct, if the council would like for us to please direct, not his exact words. So with that being said, I would like to move to direct the town staff to schedule ARPA visioning sessions within 30 days and send out an EDDM to town residents and businesses alerting them of the scheduled date and time.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Councilmember Lundy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. At this time, per the amendment to the agenda, we've added the audit approval under financial business. Is there a motion to approve the audit that was presented at tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Rout. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Blunt. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. At this time, we'll move into new business items. And as was stated earlier, we truly want to thank our colleagues, Councilmember Carletta Lundy, for her years of service. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also Councilmember Chris Mendoza, who served for, is it 16 years? It's some crazy
Yes.
number. 16 years, yes, so in his absence. This takes a lot out of you, but it also is a requirement of your family and a commitment from them as well. And they have to share you with all your residents. And so we don't take that lightly. So I believe our town administrator is trying to work to schedule an appreciation for you and do the same thing for Councilmember Mendoza. Typically, in a non-COVID situation, we would do that tonight. And our state, county, federal delegations would send, citations and just come out to really celebrate you all. But just in light of COVID, it didn't seem like a safe idea to try to push a lot of people in this room, especially honoring two different individuals. And so Mr. McGrory thought it would be best to just do that separately in a way where we can keep everyone safe but give acknowledgement to each of you. Mr. McGrory, anything else you want to add to that?
No.
Okay, so more to come on that. And then, again, apologies for burying the headline. But the introduction of our town clerk probably should have been earlier up since he was already jumping in, reading the public comments and such, so we'll mark that as covered.
Do you need me to go again, Mayor?
Right, one more time. It was so good. The first time was just practice.
I got a second speech.
I think we're okay. We'll save it. We'll save it. The next item was the credit card usage. I believe that was Councilmember Blunt.
Yeah, which was pretty much explained through the last one, but I know Jocelyn had a follow-up question, so I guess, but it's understood. I
Okay.
understand.
Thank you, Councilmember Blunt. Councilmember Rout.
Yes, thank you, Mayor James. So I don't want anyone in this room to think that I was personally attacking anyone as it relates to my comment. I just was asking a question to further understand the practices and the pre-purchase guidelines as it relates to people who hold cards here in the town of Bladensburg. And so I still have, and I still would like to understand if we thought it was beneficial as a government entity to have pre-purchase invoices for checks and balances. This is not alluding to anyone in particular that's doing anything wrong. This is taking the person out of the position. We are all here to do local governance and service our community. And these are not our individual funds, nor are they private funds. And so for the purposes of checks and balances and being able to understand how we are expending I would like for us to consider pre-purchase invoices and guidelines so that there are checks and balances. Any of us can leave our roles and our positions today or tomorrow, and the record, the black and white, is what we are here to ensure that exists. And so my only recommendation is that the town administrator, with his guidance and leadership, establish pre-purchase credit card guidelines. So I move that the town administrator, over the next 60 days, develops pre-purchase guidelines to assure for checks and balances as it relates to the internal control credit card usage.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Blunt. Any further discussion? I think we covered the discussion in the work session. I will just say, as I stated previously, I think this is just an extra step that's not necessary. I appreciate the feedback from you as well as Councilmember Blunt and where you're coming from. But given my experience here in the role, given the clean audits, given the fact that everything has to be reconciled, I just see it as an extra step, but I appreciate your feedback. Mr. McGrory.
Thank you, Mayor. And I didn't participate in the conversation at the work session on this particular topic that was led by Mr. Tonelli, principally from the staff level. But I did want to note that credit cards are designed to make purchasing easier. And the charter, the town's purchasing policies, the complete set of which was put in the last meeting's packet at the request of Councilmember Blunt. This item was on the agenda last time. We didn't get to cover it last time, but we put lots of supporting material in there. Just a summary of that was put in to reduce the page count of the number of papers we put in your packets. But all of that gives the town administrator significant fiduciary authority within the locus of control under the oversight of the town council and with the town treasurer. So we've got bonding, and I would argue that much of that purchasing authority then devolves to the department heads. And within each department heads have some discretion to spend funds. So inasmuch as this town administrator and every prior town administrator has devolved that spending authority to the other department heads to purchase goods and services for the benefit of the town government, I think the adequate controls are there, and the credit card number is quite few. That circle is kept very small, and it's, to my perspective, not appreciably different from someone who calls up a vendor and says, hey, I'd like to order these goods for the town of Bladensburg, and they, on good faith, send the goods and send a follow-up invoice to the town, which gets processed and then paid. So similarly, the credit card is simply front-loading a good faith intent to pay. It does give us the additional protections of being able to say, hey, we didn't mean to get that item, or there was an errant charge, so we do have extra controls. To my mind, and we just heard from the auditor, we have adequate controls. We have a clean audit yet again, and I think building in front-loading purchase approvals in advance of the use of a credit card is an extraordinary step. I think I mentioned last meeting, I'm working now for the 8th government I've worked for. I've had credit cards in each of the 4 prior governments among those, and they all had guidance parameters similar to what exists here, but nothing that requires each individual purchase, for example, to be pre-approved in advance of someone in a leadership role either using the card themselves or delegating that responsibility on a case-by-case basis. So I'll just give that overview. The guidance in the motion is clear. I don't think the motion is necessary, but I serve at the pleasure of the council, and so it's up to you.
Because, I mean, but I was
Thank you, Mr. McGrory. Mr.
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Blunt, go ahead.
I was questioning I asked for a check from Vito, and he's the treasurer. He never said no until I came to pick up the check. So for some reason, I couldn't get the check from my program. And he's the treasurer. He should have known from the jump that I could not get a check. So I don't know what happened, that he did not give me a check. So that means he didn't trust me with funds. And I didn't mind Diamond and them going with me with $600. I got that 3 times over. And I got questioned, or I had supervision. So where was the trust then?
Thank you, Councilmember
I mean,
Blunt.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
That's
so
one.
the motion is on the table. We have
Okay.
the motion and a second. Is there any further discussion so we can move to a vote?
Okay.
Councilmember, is there an emergency?
Yeah, I was trying to see. too.
Sorry, for those watching, there's a bright light out in the parking lot in an emergency vehicle, so I'm just making sure everything's good. Councilmember Rao?
Yes, thank you, Mayor James. I understand that this is not our current practice. As I stated before, the only step would be to identify, or however the town administrator, I mean, we're giving information to the town administrator. If that is, I don't want to direct, I want to give I want to legislate and allow the town administrator to direct how they foresee or in this role with this position. I too have worked for local governments, state governments, federal governments, and there's some types of checks and balances that takes place, whether it's sending a checklist to say this is this is a pre-authorization, or this is what I'm sending, this is what these expenses are going to be for. Imagine this scenario. There is a senior gathering for 1,000. There is a senior gathering that's budgeted in the mayor and council's budget for $1,000. There in the larger mayor and council budget, there is $2,000. Mm-hmm. There is a credit card limit of $3,000. That's say, taking the person out of the position, mm-hmm. that they went over. And so then now the budget is exhausted, mm-hmm. and there wasn't checks and balances. The right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing, but I had a gathering I needed to expend. This prevents overspending and over budgeting. This creates an opportunity for shared information prior to the purchases happening. Now, of course, if we're buying plates and ice and cups, I don't think that that's necessary. But for an expenditure that was large, let's say, for instance, Councilmember Blunt was not in her position, and she was not the person that was in that position and had her experience. It could have easily been a different scenario or a different situation. So I definitely hear both sides of the story, but what I'm only asking is for a policy and procedure to be added to this to safeguard, and I don't see the hurt, harm, or danger in that. And thank you so much for hearing what I had to say.
Thank you. And so, again, the motion's on the floor. We have a second. I think both positions have been made clear. So I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
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 Any nays? Nay. The motion carries 3-1. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Charnovich for the records management and retention.
My notes here. While we have a moment, do you want to do the Marion bike ride again?
Sure. We'll give you a few extra moments. So for those who didn't tune in, do you want to do a quick recap, Mr. McGrory?
Sure.
Want me to do it?
Yes. Mr. Walker from the Bladensburg Waterfront Park gave a presentation about doing a bike ride, holiday bike ride with bike decorations. And they gave a nice PowerPoint presentation to the council at the work session. And I think the chief had commented that his staff is prepared to assist with that as far as public safety. And it would involve originating at the waterfront park, going up the trail, and then cutting across, connecting to Edmonston Road, back down past Town Hall, and terminating back at the waterfront park. So that's a brief synopsis.
Thank you, Mr. McGrory. And as we shared with Mr. Walker, we enjoy the opportunities to partner with the staff at the Bladensburg Waterfront Park. They've supported a number of our initiatives, and this would be great, hopefully to bring some holiday cheer to folks. So I would ask for a motion to proceed with the partnership with the Bladensburg Waterfront Park staff, which is under Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Lundy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Blunt. Any further discussion?
Can I ask?
Go ahead, Councilmember Blunt.
So when we partnering with them, is there a line item that we'll be using for that? Or
Correct. It's a community event. So if we want to pay for the hot chocolate from Starbucks, it would come out of that line item.
sure we'll get more than this hot chocolate.
Or I mean, whatever you all think. Now,
Okay.
I'm not trying to spend $1,000, but no. But if we can do hot cocoa, I don't know, maybe, let me talk to the fire chief. Maybe we can get some s'mores or something. That would be really nice because it's cold and they talked about having some warming stations. Chief is looking at me like, why are you talking about bringing fire over here? But let me talk about it. But the dollar commitment would be low. I'm thinking we could do this for a couple $100. Does that sound okay? Okay, Councilmember Rout.
Yes, I support this. Can we just name a dollar amount just for the record? Like, is it like $300? Is it? I'm sorry. Thank you. I had to turn my mic on. Yeah, so can we name a specific dollar amount so that we can all be comfortable? So you said a couple hundred, like 300?
What would you like?
200, 300?
Say not to exceed.
Not, yeah, at NCE.
So I'm asking for a subsidiary motion to the original motion, or can I do it? It's on my motion, Bob.
Yeah.
Can I make an amendment, or is it best to just do it separately?
You can, I'm familiar with friendly amendments without
All right.
so much parliamentary process.
All right,
You
so
all agree?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the motion that the expenses would not exceed $300. I can't imagine we go near that, but just to be on the safe side. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so any further discussion before we call for the vote? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. We were giving Mr. Charnovich a few more moments to get ready for the records management and retention presentation. Ready?
Yeah, I'm cool.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you at this time.
I love this title.
Thank you.
So, let me first start off by saying that this is an incredibly immense topic as far as on a broad picture sense. So I provided this document to the council as a way to just kind of introduce it to everyone. I was talking to Mr. McGrory about it, and I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on tonight's discussion on this topic. In fact, I'm probably not even going to reference each page on the PowerPoint, but thanks for being willing to do that. So one of my major duties as the town clerk of the community is to be the custodian of all of our records and how we manage them, how we dispose of them, et cetera, et cetera. Now, for any organization, including governments, local governments, a lot of our documents on our records are the backbone and the key to the organization. It documents all of these all of these practices and things that we do. As Councilmember Rout just referenced, something like a purchasing policy, or now especially the ever-changing legislation with police records. So anything we do with that, it's kind of an evolving door, so to speak. So I think this will be my fourth jurisdiction that I have served. I'm half of you, Mr. McGrory. You said 8, I think. So I've seen these challenges that we face in every jurisdiction. So anything we talk about or work through, everybody is battling the challenges of all the documents that we have, what to do with them, retaining them, digitizing them, things of that nature. I know whenever I had an initial meeting with the council on our Zoom call, we talked a lot about digitizing records. I tend to be a very of the era of promoting that, wanting to do that, kind of getting moving forward into the digital age, and either those documents that can be disposed of, dispose of those, get those some of those documents to the Maryland State Archives that need to go, and things of that nature. So one advantage of spending half of my career in Maryland, in Montgomery County, I wasn't in Prince George's County, but I did work with Maryland State Archives, had a good relationship with them, and I'm very familiar with what state law entails with respect to records management. So I think that on the priority list, and I clearly have Mr. McGrory to delegate that to me as far as what our priorities are. But it's going to be something that at the beginning I want to get started with working to develop a policy for records retention. It is going to be an elephant. It is not going to be easy. It's going to take input from various stakeholders, and it's going to be a big ask. But I think it's something that is needed to work on, and to get done and moving forward, because I think that the concept of digitizing everything is a goal that's longer term, because we don't want to digitize things that we don't even need. For example, check records from 1950. Or that's just an example for you. That's a fictitious one, but so I know we have storage of documents that I've not even seen the full scope of just yet. But I think that we'll chip away at it and get working on things as soon as we can. Obviously and clearly, we're not going to be disposing of any records without having a formal policy in place, even if they are records from way yonder that we don't need anymore. There are certain documents that will always need to keep, like hard copies of meeting minutes, things of that nature. But I think that's kind of the overarching perspective of it. I provided the document from MML because I personally, having served in Maryland and Montgomery County, I know and I'm very cognizant of the value that MML provides to everyone with respect to things like this, or I think traffic calming was discussed earlier. Another great resource to have there when they have these at their annual conventions and their meetings. So I trust in what they provide, I guess is my point. So I think that's a big picture perspective tonight. I'm not sure how much time I have left. I mean, if anybody wanted to ask any general questions, you can, but I'm still diving into the specifics of Bladensburg, so I may not have all the answers for you just yet with respect to that. But I'll be happy to answer any questions anytime. If not, we can move on.
Thank you, Mr. Charnovich. So I know you've mentioned you've gone through this a few times, and I know this is only week 3, but there's so many paper files laying around here. I think you heard earlier when we were referencing ongoing monthly expenses for storage for records. Just generally coming out of this situation where everything's been stored on paper, and some probably going back to the 70s, what's a realistic rough timeline, just so we sort of understand as the council what we're talking? Is it like 18 months because of the fact that you've got to get the policies in place and get those filed with the state first before you start moving through cleaning things up, shredding and all that?
So once the policy gets in place, then I think you really have to, it depends on the amount of resources that you have to do the work and implement the work. I know Mayor James, you and I had a brief chat in the office about companies like SureScan, who comes to MML. Then we also talked about the concept of our high school students and things like that, getting them acclimated. You mentioned about getting them acclimated to local government and having them help in the process. In fact, it's interesting when I referenced when I was an intern in my initial local government job in grad school. I recall my supervisor putting me into the records room, and I walked in there and I was like, ooh, you know, it was like what in the world is this? But the interesting thing about it is that I sat there, I looked at documents, I just skimmed stuff, looked at files, and I said, oh, this is a great way for me to learn about local government. You know, what is a subdivision, or what are all these different terms that help me to learn? So it's a great learning experience for any student in the community who might want to get involved in city government. So not necessarily trying to evade the question, but I think it just depends on the amount of resources that we have. You know, if you have 2 or 3 people who are working on scanning a bunch of stuff into digitizing, that could take a long time. If you have 50 people, that's fictitious, by the way. I'm not suggesting we employ 50 people. You know, then you bring like an army in, a records army, to come in and digitize. So that would take less time. So it really I think it just depends on the amount of resources that we have.
Great, thank you. And just for the benefit of everyone else, when I was asking about this and the process, I understand, and I've only seen short scans, so I'm just throwing them out there. Not that I'm advocating for that, but they have the scanners that they send you. And so I would hate to use a lot of staff time on that. However, we have high school students at the International High School of Langley Park or Bladensburg or Elizabeth Seton, and we could use some of those kids. We can be selective about which ones we hire and interview them, but they could be helping, you know, 4 or 5 at a time on certain days within certain hours with supervision to come in and help us expedite that process. So it wouldn't just be one person, you know, trying to scan however many thousands of documents.
Certainly.
So that was the context of the conversation.
I think the program that the program and the plan that I or we collectively would develop would also be a big player in how effective and how fast we would be to get it done. I don't know why this quote came to my head, but now a quote came to mind. I'm the kind of person where I think Abraham Lincoln, one of his famous quotes was that if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe. So that's one of my favorite quotes as when I do things, when I do projects and things like that. So in this case, you know, you spend a lot of the time up front to develop our program and our policy, get things in place, bring in our students, line them up, as you mentioned, Mayor, and then you just come in and just execute the project. So that's an analogy I would use in this case.
Great, thank you. So before you have a seat, I have 2 hands, Councilmember Rout, and then I'll go to Councilmember Blunt.
Didn't expect to quote Abraham Lincoln in my first council meeting.
Well, I like Abraham Lincoln, so he's a pretty awesome guy.
What's that?
I like Abraham Lincoln. He was a pretty awesome guy.
Indeed.
So I love the idea that Mayor James had just suggested, and perhaps we could think about targeting our program for the summer, because I know if we sign up, I'm sure the deadline is coming rather quickly, but we could be a site for our summer intern program that's through the county. And so if that's our goal, right, if we can develop and start to digitize, if that's our goal, if we collectively can start building this program so that we know, okay, Prince George's County, can you send us, I'm being a little generous, like 7, 8 bodies so that we can be able to gather, and then Rich could be able to compile and develop the projects as it relates to mapping out, well, over the course of these 4 weeks, this student would have, you know, the work orders from this department, you know, and we can, I think this is a phenomenal way to get our community involved, and then our young people, of course, through their supervision, using county dollars and resources to pay them, we could be able to, I think this is an excellent idea. Like, if we could start to work on this, I'm getting really excited.
So, thank you for that. And Councilmember Blunt, I'm going to admit, I was just reminded, I was sent a message from a resident who's watching. Don't forget us oldsters. That's what the message said. So we have seniors who are willing to help. So
Yes.
as I looked at you, before I turn it over to you, I want to mention
For sure.
youth and seniors,
And seniors.
okay?
Now, I do want to keep in mind, because Reverend Gail Addison has wonderful children, and we don't have to pay for that.
Yep.
So, and I know the county, we don't pay for that. So instead of we paying for youth ourselves out of our budget, we do have free, and we have, Reverend Gail Addison have excellent students. I used them for over 10 years. And I do have several seniors who's looking for employment, so as long as you say stipend, sorry about that, HUD, as long as you say stipend, then it would not be charged against their rent.
Gotcha. Thank you, Councilmember Blunt, and for the education on the terms. But it is time to move on to the next item. Anything in closing, Mr. Charles?
Yeah, one thing to close, because I'm glad you raised that. And it's a great point about going to both generations as far as wanting to help. Something else I've also seen is, I'm not sure the activism in the Bladensburg community yet, but those who are history of the community, historical societies, historical committees, things of that nature, I've seen them involved in this process, where they want to be at the table and they want to be involved in helping to do this, because they care about the community, they care about the items that are here. So, another.
Yes, Chief?
Also, with COVID and all that we had going on, a lot of the high school students weren't able to get their SSI hours, their school service hours. And this can be a good opportunity for them to meet that obligation of getting their school service hours.
Great idea,
Good
Chief.
call.
Councilmember Lundy?
And also, one of the things that we could do, first of all, fabulous. Thank God that you're here. This is wonderful, right on time. Also,
Thank you.
this could be good for the planet, the environment.
Certainly.
So we might want to think about that as far as our sustainability. We can enter ourselves in that, and we could win.
Great, thank you for
Great
that
idea.
suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda, proposed vaccination clinic at Town Hall. Is that Councilmember Rowe?
Yes, thank you,
Yep.
Mayor James. So to go back, so when early on in COVID, we were scurrying and trying to locate vaccines. And that was when vaccines were few and far between. There wasn't much access. And a lot of community organizations have partnered with the Maryland Equity Task Force to develop access to the vaccines, because earlier in COVID, there wasn't equity amongst the vaccines. Some counties were getting more vaccines than the others. Some municipal governments and locations were receiving high amounts of the vaccines. It was really all about like who you knew. And so the Governor Hogan, through his leadership, developed the Maryland Equity Task Force. And we met the Lieutenant Colonel Jenkins, who was a huge advocate for the town of Bladensburg and bringing access to the town of Bladensburg through our community partners and our senior centers to be able to provide access. Most recently, I was approached by some of the still project managers in the GoVax Equity Task Force, and they have equity of vaccines. They're still in existence because they want to provide additional opportunities for the low barrier, lower vaccination performing municipalities such as Bladensburg. In the town of Bladensburg, we are one of 10 municipalities in Prince George's County that has a lower average of vaccinations. And through Mayor James's leadership, Councilmember Blunt, Councilmember Lundy, you all have done a phenomenal job with bringing access. And so the GoVax Maryland Equity Task Force approached and said, hey, we have vaccines. We would come out, we would send out a mobile unit, we would take care of the vaccinations. We will use the National Guard to deploy and to be able to put these vaccines into the arms, specifically because there are, well, given today, our federal government stated that children ages 5 to 11 would be able to access vaccines. And so I know we have partners through the school system. I know Portstown's elementary school is a vaccination site, and I believe the end of this month they're going to be having a vaccination fair at Portstown's from like 3 to 8 p.m. Later on this month. But this would be an additional opportunity. So let's say we have a working family and they can't get their child out during that 3 to 8 time frame. If the town of Bladensburg, if it's our pleasure, we could host a vaccination clinic through the state of Maryland GoVax mobile. I know we have connections with the county. I know we have connections with private organizations. But this application was actually, it was, we were recruited to participate. And so I wanted to bring it to the mayor and council and our staff to see, is this something that it's worth that we want to be able to do collectively, where the National Guard and the Maryland Equity Task Force can come out. It would just be the submittal of an application. And I have the application drafted. I can just hit send. And speaking with our leadership here, I wanted to bring it to you all's approval for a vote to see if this is something that are we even interested in doing.
Thank you, Councilmember Rout. Any feedback from the team?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think it's something that we definitely should do. Given the fact, I think Prince George's County on the whole is like number 8 right now. I think it's 8 or it's less than 10. And what you gave comments about Bladensburg, so I think it couldn't hurt. It definitely would help our community. We did something like that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I would agree. The challenge is, it seems like we've plateaued with vaccinations. In the beginning, everybody wanted them. And now we really have to be thoughtful and strategic about getting to the hard-to-reach community members. I know we recently did something with Councilmember Ivy and Luminous Healthcare, where instead of going to buildings, we were at the shopping centers. But even with that, I mean, you had your son out there with the sign trying to get people to pull over. We were shaking the sign on Annapolis Road trying to get people to pull in, and it's very difficult. Either they want it or they don't. However, with the recent changes to vaccinate younger children, it could help us, given we have so many schools in the area. If we did a marketing blitz or just reached out to the community service coordinators for the school to ask them to share it with parents. And as you mentioned, perhaps if whatever times the schools are hosting don't work for families, we could complement that with alternative times or weekend, whatever we can sort out with the National Guard. But I mean, the reality is there's still too many people in our local communities who have not been vaccinated. So I would agree, I support it. Councilmember Blunt.
And I know Councilmember Joslin and yourself, Mayor, have a lot of resources, because it's sometimes it's not about people wanting to take the shot. It's what they feel or what their beliefs are. If maybe some counselors can have information to pass out or have at site so they can reach people like myself who's actually was afraid of taking that shot. And I mean, it sent me to see my doctor to find out, so at the end of the day, yes, I took my first shot.
All right.
And I can move my arm now. But no, because I was really afraid. Nervous, afraid, pressure was 200 and something, because I didn't know they put the vaccine in you. So it's a lot I didn't know, and I was afraid, but I'm fine. I'm fine. So it's a lot of people fearful of the shop for whatever reasons they're fearful, but to have some resources out there somebody just to talk to people like myself who will calm them down, to explain, just like taking a pain pill that you don't know your doctor gives you. So, I mean, I'm just saying, it'd be nice to have some.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I noticed, so with the county, they have folks who will talk to you at those events before you even get it. I'm not sure if the National Guard has the same resources. I would think so, because as you mentioned, there's a lot of fear out there, and there's also a lot of misinformation. And even with the truth being out there, you have other people for various reasons who have just this underlying fear. When we had the one at the community center, one of my neighbors who I've known for 20 years, he walked his wife across the street so she could get the shot, and then he realized he left his ID. So she stayed with me while he went back to get it. And I mean, just in that 10 minutes, she just lost it. And she was like, I can't do this, and in tears. So he had to come back, take her home. But they came back a few hours later, but he really had to call relatives who've gotten it to say, look, your sister got it, she's fine. Your brother got it, let's call him, he's fine. I mean, people have some very serious fears, and I think you're right. If we're trying to convey that this is here to help you, we should take that extra step, and I definitely would be willing to get resources for that. So Councilmember Rao, and then we need to move forward.
There is resources available to us through the PG Health Ad Hoc Vaccination Work Group. There's a presenter from University of Maryland. So that's the problem, is our engagement to get these people. These people are in their homes, they're like at our schools. So, I mean, there are free resources where people at the University of Maryland can come out and conduct education, maybe during the vaccination or maybe host something. But the problem is, how do we engage them to get them to our opportunity? And I can share all of those resources with whomever in the council, or maybe I could take this project on with someone. But can we do this?
Yeah, let's go ahead and vote. I think, to your point, though, it's going to require canvassing. If you don't get out a couple days before, knock on doors and talk to people face to face, just emailing is not realistic. So I think that has to be a part of it. So I would agree. With that, is there a motion to approve a vaccination clinic at Town Hall?
I so moved.
Moved by Councilmember Blunt. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Rao. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. And the next item is the indoor mask mandate.
Yes, so that's me again. Hi, everyone. So a couple months ago, when we had a spike in COVID positive cases in Prince George's County, I introduced a mask mandate. At that time, I felt it was needed, and the council approved that. It's now time to sunset that. The county executive has sent out correspondence to us that the Department of Health and their statisticians are looking at our numbers, and we are at the bulk of dropping below the moderate range of transmission by the CDC. And so I would like to add amend our current indoor mask mandate as we are moving back into normalcy, so that we can be able, so once we drop below 50 cases weekly per 1,000 residents in Prince George's County, that would put us in the moderate range of transmission, as the moderate range is established by the CDC. And if Prince George's County stays below that number for 7 consecutive days, Prince George's County will reduce the mask mandate. So my ask today is to ask if the town council would consider the adoption for a sunset to our indoor mask mandate, to follow the guidance of Prince George's County. I think that it's an appropriate time as more people are being vaccinated, the transmission is lower, there are a couple different variants out, but we're in a good space. And so I would like to request that you all support this revision to sunset the mask mandate as it relates to the guidance set forth by Prince George's County.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Councilmember Lundy. Any further discussion? Just to add on, so we did on Thursday, October 28th, from the county executive, we received the information, and I think you said 50 cases per thousand, but I think you meant 100,000.
I'm sorry.
Because it's 54.
Yeah, per 100,000.
Yeah,
Yes.
0.33 cases
Yes.
per 100,000, and this was as of October 27th. So this,
yeah.
according to the information provided here, these are our case rates, and our being Prince George's County are one of the lowest in the region as you look at the chart across the major counties across the area. And so that's what Councilmember Rout was referring to. But I'll call for the vote unless there's any other discussion. I'm sorry,
Can I just
Mr.
ask a
McGrory.
clarifying question? And I appreciated that prior to the council receiving this, we had conversations about the implementation. I just want to be absolutely clear. Is the motion to revoke Resolution 03-2021, or is it to modify the language within the resolution?
It's to modify the language within the resolution to give a sunset date.
And what's the date, Councilmember? I missed that. I'm sorry.
The sunset is to follow the guidance as set forth by Prince George's County.
Okay.
Because we are looking at, the problem is that we can't say next Friday, because once we drop below 50 cases per 100,000 residents, that would put us in the moderate range, but we have to stay there for 7 consecutive days. So it's fluctuating. But since the county, they have the statisticians to do the actual data on a daily basis, if we just yield to their expertise, we had our mask mandate before they did, if you recall. So if we yield to Prince George's County and their data that they are sending, that is when the indoor mask mandate can sunset.
So it's just when Prince George's County announces that they're moving away from the mandate, we would follow that. In the ordinance, do you want to read what it says, Mr.
Yeah, so
McGrory?
I'm just reading from this, and I said revoke, I meant repeal.
Oh, yes.
It closes with, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage and remain in effect until the repeal of this resolution by the Bladensburg Council. So I would just suggest that that clause after until could be modified to say until case counts go below X, or, just specify what that trigger is, and if you tell me what specific words to put in there. Unless you already got them, Rich, sorry.
No, it would read repeal when Prince George's County falls in the moderate range of transition as determined by the CDC, and Prince George's County stays below that number for 7 consecutive days.
Thank you.
And if you didn't get it, we have the email. We
Yeah, I
can
can
forward it
send
to you if
Yep.
you need to be.
Okay.
All right, so that is the motion on the floor. It has been properly seconded. I'll now call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
One nay. The ayes have it. Thank you so much. At this time, we'll move forward. I believe we moved the 58th Avenue project to this agenda because we couldn't get to it in the work session. So, Mr. Charnovich, I'll turn it back over to you, or is that you, Mr. McGrory?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me verify the last motion. It was 3-1 with Councilmember Blunt opposed.
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to verify
Yes.
for my record here. Thank you.
I mean, you can still wear your mask if you need to.
Right.
Thank you.
So this item, I stumbled on this as I was in the first couple of days I was working here. I started by watching the last month's council meetings. It was a good way for me to learn. I work on the minutes also to help Mr. McGrory with those. But during the work session, Mayor James had referenced this grant lighting project, and she was just thrilled and excited that the Newtown clerk was on the way to get this moving. So here I am. Obviously, very new. Mr. Tonelli was able to get me the grant agreement that we have in place for this particular project. There are some deadlines for it in 2022. I understand that we have not expended anything yet or worked on anything at all. It's as to date, and it was the grant started, I believe, in January of 2020, and it is $150,000 of a grant, and then I believe it's $15,000 of town input, administrative cost, soft cost, whatnot there. And it is a safety and improvement lighting project on 57th and 58th Avenue, as I read from looking at the agreement. I will say, in an overarching general perspective, I have a lot of experience with safety lighting projects, both on governmental property, parkland, streetscapes, things of that nature. Have worked with different, Pepco, when I was in Montgomery County, worked heavily with Pepco. Worked a lot with different consultants when it comes to lighting projects, things of that nature. Personally, I'm a huge advocate for safety lighting anywhere you go. I walk our dog late at night and in my community, and I walk around and I'm like, why in the world is it so dark right in this spot? Things of that nature. And then this topic then will dovetail, in fact, into the discussion you had earlier regarding traffic calming. So they can merge hand in hand. You know, if your streets are safer for your walkers and there's more light, then you can then help to kind of kill two birds with one stone. You're making it safer for your walkers, and then it also helps with your traffic calming, and it goes hand in hand. So I guess for the purpose of tonight, I would just say that I've already talked to Mr. McGrory in a general sense, and as I said at the very beginning, Mayor James, I know you're very excited. So I am committed to doing anything we need to do to complete this, get the funds used. I've not had contact yet with our grants administrator for the program. I have no idea yet if there's any opportunity for extensions or anything like that into 2022. But I do know that there are some deadlines in the middle of 2022, so we need to kind of get moving with that.
Thank you, Mr. Charnovich. And to that end, that was the reason for bringing it up, just to ask if you or Mr. McGrory could just reach out to DHCD and let them know we've had some staff turnover, and oh, by the way, COVID happened. What flexibility is there, so you kind of know where you need to, get moving on the timelines to move the project forward?
Sure.
And if you have any issues getting through to someone, let me know. I can try to help reach out and get a good contact person.
That sounds good.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Any questions from the rest of the team? Okay. We're just like ready, set, go. And as you can tell, everything kind of loops back to public safety. Well-lit streets, traffic calming, like there's a theme, right? So anything you can do to help is much appreciated.
Wonderful. I'm glad to help. Hopefully we can get it done ASAP.
Yeah. Thank you. So I have a lot of scrabble on my agenda. I think that satisfies everything that we added under new business, and we're now ready to proceed with staff reports. Public Works, I don't think Mr. Hall is online, is he? No? Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Tonelli.
Yes, 1 second. I'm going to this up. I'll keep it brief. Believe it or not.
No.
Yeah, send this out every month. It's our financial report. I do a brief summary. Real quick, we're in the first third of the fiscal year. Not a whole lot of action right now, not like large variances, since we're still at the beginning. I want to say at the onset of the fiscal year, it feels like. I feel like we just got finished the previous fiscal year with the audit. A couple things I want to draw attention to. I summarized these and put these on the table. The financial summary so far through October. Total revenues, we've received almost 1/2 our total budget revenues through 1/3 of the fiscal year. Sounds good. I know. It's what happens is, what drives that is the property tax and personal property tax. So property tax is real estate taxes you pay to the county. There's 2 due dates. For the semi-annual payments, you have the ones that are due September 30th and December 31st. And what we're seeing now is it varies who makes or they can do the annual payment on September 30th, okay? So it all depends, like a lot of people have their taxes escrowed with a mortgage company, or if they pay them themselves, they won't pay them all at once, or they take the semi-annual payment option. What this is a timing difference, really. The taxes are going to come in, but compared to last year, we received $2.8 million of the property taxes versus $2.3 million right now. And that was really surprising, and that was across many jurisdictions, because that was during COVID. Because you heard the auditor talk about, that we budgeted conservatively. Well, of course we did. We budgeted during COVID, thought everybody's going to be out of work, down economy, they couldn't pay the taxes, assessments are going to start decreasing. That didn't happen. And we're seeing the same thing with business personal property tax. We've received 3/4 of our budgeted billings already for the first time in the fiscal year. I haven't seen that yet since I've been here. So, again, that was a surprise because it's supposed to be a down economy and everybody's doing well. And we're seeing that with the income taxes as well. And they're projected to be higher. And we keep hearing about it, but at some point there is going to be a trickle effect, but it just hasn't happened yet, which is good. But so that's just the revenue side. So again, we've received almost 1/2 of our budget already through October. Expenses, we're operating just under budget. We're operating at the total expenses are 31%, and we're a third of the year, so we're doing well. But we have had some staff vacancies, and also we haven't expended certain things that we had in the budget, like for instance the speed camera contract. That has not been expended yet. So there's certain things that are in there, but we still pay the insurances and the compensation, everything. And I put the same tables at the charts in here, so this kind of keeps score every single month, how we're doing actual compared to budget. Again, the big jumps there are real estate taxes and business personal property tax, and they start going down from there. Expenditures, as we talked about in there, you just said public safety is our main concern. That's why public safety is about 70% of our budget. And then public works is second most, and then we have what we call the administrative departments here, including the mayor and council, the admin, the town clerk, and finance. And the rest of the schedules here are detailed financials of how each department is doing. We have 5 departments, 5 or 6 departments, the mayor and council, town administrator, town clerk, finance, public safety, public works, and a smaller department for grants. Right now, we don't have any grants budget to be expended, but even though the community legacy grant is online. We'll go ahead and amend that, or, as it gets done, it could be out to FY22. So we just don't know. And that is really about it. And then it's the full financials there through the first third of the year with a budget summary. And all this is available online. If any residents have any questions, please shoot me an email. My email is at the bottom of the financial report on the first page. And if the council have any questions?
Sure. So, Vito, just one question, because you know how things kind of take a while to catch up. Are you hearing from like the professional associations you're a part of that maybe this revenue situation that we're experiencing now, it's delayed, so maybe we're a year behind fully filling any sort of deficits with property taxes or personal property taxes? Like, will this hit us in the next budget cycle? Is that part of the forecast?
That's a popular question, and Bob and I went to the Maryland Government Finance Officers Association. Help me say his name. I knew from Sage Policy Group, the main economist in Maryland.
Yeah.
He touched on that, and it was actually he talked about it quite a bit. When we saw the housing crisis in 2008 and also the downturn in 2014, it was because of aggressive factors such as the lending fiasco. It says right now, with the housing market, what's driving it is not enough inventory. It's not that there's surplus lending, there's just not enough inventory right now. So that's driving the prices up. It's not like a surplus of inventory. Everybody's fighting just to get, so that's the major thing that will keep that down. As far as the incomes, the COVID, which I talked about 3 months ago, COVID on the unemployment had a larger impact, I hate to say, but on the lower wage earners. But the ones in the service industries still stayed employed, and the incomes stayed the same or even increased, which increased taxes. Now, as those jobs come back into service-related fields, again, that's going to boost the economy. But the biggest thing right now is, of course, that everyone heard is, as everyone's hearing, is what's going to be the trickle-down effect of the supply chain. I was just talking to something I didn't even think about. I was talking to a distillery on Saturday evening, and they said they're starting to see distillery operations having to close down because they can't get bottles. They put the bottle manufacturing over in India, and now they can't even put their product in bottles to get on the shelves. Something you don't even think about. It's like, oh my gosh, how many more people is that going to impact down the line? So it's for right now, for this fiscal year, I think everything is looking great so far. So again, we're on a third of the way through the fiscal year. So.
Great. Thank you for that report, Mr. Tonelli. Any questions from the team before we move to public safety? All right, thank you. Chief, you're up.
All right. Should I go to the poll? All right.
We don't want you to go.
Since Rich already started it.
Jeez, I broke the chain.
I know. You got to pass. So I just want to say, to everyone that the month of October has been, it was a very busy month for our police department, for our town council, for our public works, and I just want to commend our staff that go above and beyond every day. They just amaze me with their resilience and the grit that they have every day that they come to work, in spite of what's going on across the country, and building relationships. And I can say here in Bladensburg, I've seen like no other place. I mean, we are always commended about our robust community engagement. And I'll just run down a couple highlights of events that we hosted in the month of October, starting with October the 7th. Was the town of Bladensburg, where we partnered with the state's attorney's office for Our Streets, Our Future campaign, and it was a committee with Councilmember Rout, Sugar Bear from the iconic DC Go-Go band, EU, who wanted to do some outreach in Bladensburg to honor the 8-year-old Peyton Evans, PJ, who lost his life to a senseless gun violence. And so we recognized him, his mom, his family, and other victims of gun violence. State's Attorney Aisha Brayboy, her team did a fantastic job, and our staff. And I want to commend and thank all of the law enforcement chiefs. There are 27 municipalities in Prince George's County. 24 of them have their own police department. And we had a huge showing of support when we reached out to the chiefs, and I can't thank them enough when I reached out and asked for assistance, how they stepped up and answered the call. October the 9th was our first week of our Citizen Police Academy, and I want to thank Acting Corporal Tanksley for the great job and community engagement that he does. He put this Citizen Police Academy together. There were 13 people signed up, and I think on a regular, maybe 6 or 7 people show up every week. And just having that insight of what it's like to be a police or see what we do every day, it just really amazes us, and it also gives a broader perspective of what it's like to be a police officer in today's time. And I could say Saturday I heard so much feedback from the scenarios that they got put through Saturday. They were really engaging. They stepped up, and just to watch the videos that they showed me, they taking this Citizen Police Academy very serious. Hopefully, we will have some residents that we do have some Acting Sergeant Ramirez and a couple others that grew up in Bladensburg and are now police officers serving the community they grew up. It's an honor and a privilege for me, and I'm humbled to serve as being a student, spending 3 years at Bladensburg High School, and then coming back and working in the same community I attended high school in. So it's an honor, and I hope we can get many more to join us. On October the 9th, we were joined by our resident, Ms. Susan McCutcheon, for the Lead by Example anti-bullying rally and march. The mayor was there. We had a great time. Councilmember Rouse showed up and gave us support for that second leg, because I could tell you, I didn't know Bladensburg had so many hills. When you start walking, I say jokingly, I had to look down because my legs went numb. But we had a great time. The citizens engaged us, just hearing the horns blow, seeing the youth out there, seeing the parents out there. I mean, it was just phenomenal just to have that community engagement. And again, I'll say, and I'll echo what Councilmember Rout always say, nobody does it like Bladensburg. We're Bladensburg strong, and we're Bladensburg proud. The next major event we had was we were fortunate enough to go up and support the International High School of Langley Park. We had Secretary of Department of General Services, was he Secretary? Yes, Secretary. He did come. They donated 50 computers to the International High School of Langley Park. I might be wrong with the number. Was it 50? It was 100. That's what I thought, but I wasn't for sure. But these computers were given to these seniors up at the high school. And I can tell you, being a parent of a young child that went to college, sending them off with that laptop, they need it. And to see these young people get presented with these laptops, it's just, it's an amazing thing just to watch how we are building our students for the future. Again, we had Corporal Tanksley did his straight talk with teens. I mean, the mentorship program is just robust here in the town of Bladensburg, and he is very passionate about seeing these youth succeed in life. And that's what, we want to deal with them in this perspective and not on the negative interaction with them. And I'll just skip through. I'm not going to go through all of them because we just do so much. They held a open house for the police explorers on October the 18th, and we had about 10 new youth sign up. So the program is getting out there, the word is getting out there, and we're still growing our youth programs. We had our trunk or treat event that was, and I want to thank our partners at the Bladensburg Recreation Center for allowing us to move inside due to the inclement weather. We had a nice turnout, and I always tell people, we were a little nervous, and we were kind of, should we cancel, should we not cancel? And, we made the decision, you know what, we're going to go, and then our partners at the rec center opened up the doors and let us move inside. But it's actually, the rain held off for that whole period while we were out there. Drizzled a little bit earlier. On October the 28th, we had October, the month of October is Domestic Violence Awareness, and we held a town hall conversation here. It was virtual, but our speakers were here. We had our partners from the Sheriff's Office, from Love by the Handles. Am I running out of time? Okay. Yeah, Love by the Handles. So it was just Miss Amina. She did a fantastic job, and again, I got to give kudos to Corporal Tanksley for organizing and help facilitating that conversation. It was well attended on Facebook Live. So Mayor James, he was the moderator, semi-moderator. Miss Amina did it, but you were here to support the event, and that's what it's about. Just to talk about a few stats that, calls of service that we had. Again, as Mr. Tonelli alluded to earlier, that a couple vacancies in our police department. But one thing I can say that our officers still answer every call. We ran 880 calls for service in the month of October, and that's usually about the average that we run. And I look at our officers that show up when we're short. Officers where we post the announcement for overtime because staff shortages. We have to maintain a minimum staffing level, and the officers, they do step up. And I can say that we have been filling vacancies. We just hired a new officer. This is his second week. His name is Colton Burnett. He came from Park Police. He's doing very well. He will soon be cut loose by the end of this week. We have another officer starting on the 15th. His name is, he came from a neighboring jurisdiction, but his name is Tyrone Merritt, and he will be starting. He's a 3-year veteran, so he will be starting helping us out. And then we are doing interviews next week for code enforcement to fill those positions, as well as to fill our administrative aid position. So we currently right now have 18 officers active right now. We have 3 that are inactive. We had one of the 4 that was suspended separate from us this week. So we are continuing to stay the course on making sure that we have the right people serving on our team. And lastly, we talked about the COVID. I'll do the highlights for the code enforcement. There were 6 bulk trash reminder notices issued to residents for heavy trash at the curb. Code enforcement removed 12 signs from poles, 9 from right-of-way. Total to this day, 462 signs have been removed. there were 8 abandoned vehicles in the residential area, 1 in the non-business area, 0 in apartment areas. Year to date, 91 vehicles have been abandoned, with 8 of them being impounded. There were no grass violation notices issued during the month of October. Code enforcement received 4 graffiti complaints, and they mitigated those. Other code activities, they assisted with the police department interviews. He assisted with the Our Streets, Our Future event, and also assisted with the food drive at Town Hall. So if you have any concerns or comments, please, you can notify our code enforcement at via email at code@bladensburgmd.gov, and you can always CC the chief if you don't feel like you are getting the support and responsiveness that you are seeking. You can always include me in the email as well, and we'll make sure that we give your concern some attention. I'll put that up. And I just want to say also, October was also Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we want to make sure that we honor the bravery and courage of all breast cancer survivors, those who are currently battling, and those who have lost their lives to breast cancer. We want to just thank them, and I think lastly I'll leave that for the mayor for the eco farms. And I just want to say it is our obligation and our responsibility to make sure that we have the best trained officers. I just want to say that this week we had 3 officers just graduated from Anne Arundel County's crisis intervention team. So it is my goal and my vision to make sure that every one of our officers attend the CIT training. Anne Arundel County was graciously allowed us to now cycle into every class that they have. So every one of our officers, and if you know anything about Anne Arundel County's CIT program is internationally known for the quality of training that officers receive there. And I think, I have one other thing, and I'll be done. I don't want to sound like somebody that I thought I heard say, they kept saying, one more thing. But this is the last announcement I want to make. We did have Acting Corporal Patrick Thompson, who is our training coordinator. He was recognized by the Maryland State Police Training and Correction Commission. He received the Instructor of the Year award. So that just speaks volume to the level and commitment of our staff. Any questions?
Yeah.
Councilmember Lundy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. So I want to talk about the signs, the illegal signs that I noticed along 57th Avenue, 58th Avenue, all the way up down to Community Center and everything. So I wanted to know what is done with these signs, and are these point of contact people notified? Because they can keep putting signs, and then that keeps adding to our report. They keep putting them. Are they notified that it's illegal? Are there any fines if they do it again? Because I know I wanted to pick up the signs myself, because I said I can't put my campaign sign there, but they got their little sign there in the grass in an illegal place, right? But yep. I got to make sure I'm doing the right thing. So I was wondering, what do we do to prevent these people from putting these signs out?
So that great question.
And where do they go to? Where
so we collect them, and then we put them down Public Works for a period of time, and then they become trash later. But if there's a telephone number on there, we will notify whoever's putting the signs up and let them know that you can't do it. If they continue, it's a $25 fine if they post those signs up.
And then, Chief, the other thing, it happened the week before last. Someone was putting up those "We Buy Houses" signs, and I saw them, so I just rolled the window down and said, "Look, sir, those are not legal in Bladensburg." I just explained it. I wasn't, trying to make them feel bad, but I just said that's not allowed here. So any signs you put up in our community, they're going to be removed as soon as code comes in tomorrow. So it's better if you just don't even waste your money. Right. And he looked at me, kind of went, what? I said, no, I'm telling you, that's a violation, and I see you putting them out in our community. They're just going to take them up and dispose of them, and I don't want you to waste your money. When I said it like that, he took it up and put it back in his truck and moved on. But I think as residents, if you see this happening in the neighborhood, don't be afraid. You don't have to be nasty, but just let the person know, look, sir, I know that's your business, but these are not legal, and you may just want to put those up somewhere else because our code enforcement officers will remove them. So it's good to let them know.
Yes, I have a follow-up.
Councilmember Lundy, go
Thank you.
ahead.
Yes, to those signs, I noticed that those signs that the mayor is talking about, they were out there for like about 2-3 weeks prior to, I guess, the mayor talking to the guy was seeing them, putting them down, because I was keeping a track. Because I was getting in my feelings. I was like, okay, I can't put my signs up. So that's good to know that there is a $25 fine, and that you all notify them and let them know. I think that's a common courtesy,
Right.
because they don't want to pay any kind of fine. I wouldn't want to pay $25, and then if it gets too ridiculous, we might up the fine.
Right.
Especially if we see repeat offenders, and I will be watching.
Yeah, it's the main thing we want to educate them, because if they don't
Correct.
know, they do know now.
That's right.
And
When you
if
know
they
better,
do
you
it
do
again,
better.
Then we hold
That's
them
right.
accountable.
That's right.
Thank you, Councilmember Lundy.
You're welcome.
And again, that didn't happen during election time. This was just about a week and a half ago.
Oh, for me, I
so-
saw them, the same ones,
And
the
this-
house buying, the green ones with the white. I took a
Okay.
picture. I have a photo.
Yeah, so it happened even after
Yeah.
your situation. Yeah.
Yes, I
Thank
saw.
you. Councilmember Rao?
Yeah, I just had a question. So, for clarity's sake, because I see them doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
But are the ones that can go in the grunt, they're getting smarter.
Yes.
They're not, oh. Sorry, I had to turn my mic on.
I'm watching.
So they're getting smarter. They're putting them in the ground now.
That's what I'm talking about.
They're not posting them. So my question, are they still illegal even though that they're in the ground?
Yes,
Yes.
it's still illegal, because they were doing them up on 450 as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we took the same action. Yes.
That's all I wanted to
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
And next up, we have the town clerk report, but we won't put you on the spot since you just started. You kind of have told us what you've been working on, so we'll pivot. Mr. McGrory, over to you.
You're gonna give me the hook soon.
So one of the clarifications that I had in my conversations with the town clerk in preparation of the agenda was I get to go last as town administrator, batting cleanup, so that I've run out the clock on everybody's patience with long reports, and the council just says, thank you, we have no questions. But very, very briefly, I will say, filling in a gap from Mr. Tonelli's report, Anirban Basu was the person who, excuse me, gave a Maryland economic outlook. He appears, I believe it's every weekday on 88.1 Public Radio, and gives an economic outlook. And he is both an economist and very funny. And so if you can sit through an economic outlook over the course of an hour and be made to laugh, that's quite a thing. But the main reason I accompanied Mr. Tonelli to the GFOA conference was because they had a great panel of speakers on maximizing the benefits of using ARPA funds. And so just a couple of clarifying things. There were some very helpful ideas. There are very narrow parameters about which you can use these funds, but there were helpful ideas about how some other jurisdictions are planning to use them. And the other good news was very few jurisdictions have actually spent any of their funds. So we are not behind the eight ball, and I do look forward to the visioning sessions and getting more ideas about how we could use those funds within those parameters. Similarly, there was a conference call monthly call for the chief administrative officers in the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, and they also had some great ideas about their uses of funds and had a bunch of input on engagement with staff in the context of COVID, which was very helpful guidance to receive as well. And then I want to echo something the chief said about getting the right people on our team. I was very pleased, as I had mentioned previously, to have Rich rounding out the leadership team among the department heads. And we do have a couple of key vacancies here and are looking to fill those as well. We are not having folks beating down the doors as they are to work in the police department, which I'm very pleased that the chief is getting a great number of resumes for his vacant positions, and that's a credit to the leadership in the police department. But it is terrific attending these events, as was mentioned over the last month, the Our Streets, Our Future event, with you all and with this team. And we have a team here at Town Hall, and I use that term broadly, including the police department and public works department, the whole team, where people just pitch in when they're needed to assist on things. And that's really gratifying for me to be able to pull in the oars with such a wonderful group of people. So I'll conclude my report there unless there are any questions from the council.
There appears to be no questions. Thank you, Mr. McGrory. And now we'll pivot to mayor and council reports. We'll start with Ward 1 with Councilmember Rout.
Thank you, Mayor James. For the last month, I attended the PGCMA meeting, participated in a discussion regarding the redistricting process in Prince George's County. I submitted a written statement to the county council for the purposes of sharing my perspective. I do know that the town council submitted something on behalf of, our town administrator submitted something on behalf of our town council. I am prepared to submit something else for myself as a resident of Prince George's County on November 16th. I virtually attended the Bladensburg Branch Library groundbreaking ceremony. Mayor James did a fabulous job with just pushing the importance and sharing how this has been definitely a long time coming, and our residents and our visitors to the town will definitely be appreciative of our new Bladensburg Branch Library. I continue to co-facilitate the planning and execution of the laptops for ESL. We currently have 5 laptops left, and still getting information from Bladensburg residents. There was some miseducation and misunderstanding about the qualifications. You need to be enrolled in one of the programs, whether it's free or cost, to be able to get one of the laptops. I virtually attended the Town of Bladensburg Domestic Violence Town Hall in English and in Spanish, and I really want to, I think we gave a lot of highlights to the English program led by, co-facilitated by Mayor James and Amina, but the Spanish one, my Spanish, I can understand Spanish, but I can't speak it. So my biological father used to speak Spanish to me, so I can understand Spanish. It was a phenomenal program, virtually. We had a lot of people tune in. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time we had a Spanish-focused program. And it was phenomenal. So kudos to Tanksley and the police department in collaboration with Mayor James that facilitated that. That was a really great idea, and that speaks to our diversity and how we are supporting all residents and championing their diversity. So I wanted to make sure that I thanked you all for doing that. It was a phenomenal program. Not that the English one wasn't, but I just think for our first time, we really did it. Webb's Bladensburg proud. I attended and participated in the food drive sponsored by Shabbat Ministries, and I just want to thank Shabbat Ministries. The amount of food that they gave our residents and visitors was phenomenal, and it wasn't just any old kind of food. It was healthy food. They gave out salmon and Pampers and, fresh produce, and it was so awesome. So I just want to thank them. I went to the International Langley Park with our secretary, assistant secretary of DGS, how they presented the computers, as Chief Collington stated. In addition, I facilitated the assistance with Council Member Travers's office in International High School of Langley Park. They had a vaccination clinic, which was outdoor, here at our town gazebo, and we did some public-private partnerships. So we got Safeway to come out and do the vaccinations. We provided the outdoor space, which was well attended by some of the sports teams and their family members. So they'll be having their second dose 3 weeks after that first dose. I met with Ward 1 residents regarding a couple of their code enforcement issues, and I did follow up with Chief Collington, resulting in a stop work order being issued. And so I would like to thank our Chief Collington and our code enforcement department for really hearing the residents' concerns and being able to understand where the residents are coming from. In our current environment, residents are really scared still to involve the police and being able to champion some of their things that they feel. But I think that our police department make it safe enough for our residents to want to be able to talk to our police. And so thank you, Chief Collington, for speaking with me on behalf of the residents that I serve. Upcoming events, I will be attending the Hyattsville Community Development Corporation mural ribbon cutting. I will be attending the Prince George's Access to Holistic, I'm sorry, let me back up. And that ribbon cutting is going to be at one of our businesses in town. And so that's on Monday, November 15th. Prince George's Access to Holistic and Productive Living movie night. They're going to be hosting a free movie night, and I was invited to attend. I'll be attending, and I'll be working on the Prince George's vaccination work group per the action that the town council took today. I also want to make note that I will not be at the next council meeting. I would like to ask for my council members to excuse me from that meeting. And thank you so much. And as always, if you would like to reach me, you can send me an email. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your report, Councilmember Roud. Over to Ward 2 to Councilmember, oh, you're going to forego. Okay. Councilmember Lundy, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor James. I'm going to go to the dais. To the, I'm not going here. I can't. I meant to say over here. All right. So thank you, Mayor James. So for clarity, I wanted to get, first of all, before I give my remarks, I wanted to ask for clarity because I know earlier, Mayor James, you had mentioned that we usually do something for the council members who leave during the council meeting, but because of COVID, you can't hear me? I'm sorry. You can hear me? Oh, and that because of COVID, we're not going to do anything today. And so Mr. McCory did reach out to me to say that we're going to do something at a later date. So I wanted to say publicly that I appreciate that and look forward to having a conversation to you about that with respect to the citation and all of that. So I look forward to that meeting that we're going to have. So I've did some things virtually as well, but I want to, because this will be technically my, I won't say last speaking. It won't be my last time speaking up here, trust me. But it'll be my last time sitting on the dais or sitting here as a council member. And so I wanted to share these brief remarks with the residents. So I'm saying, dear Bladensburg residents, colleagues, and staff, that we together have achieved much. My political career was birthed here in the town of Bladensburg. And I want to say congratulations to all the newly elected officials, especially to my successor for Ward 2, Ms. McBride, who now also joins myself and others who have served in this office and become a part of Bladensburg's history. I want to say also a quote. This is a quote that I really believe and I know that God gave me, and it helped sustain me through my time here on the council. And it helped me to put things in perspective. And And I wanted to publicly say that when I reached out to one of the local leaders here who confirmed this for me. And so the quote is, "People are born not only to make history, they also make a difference." So I want to say thank you to all of the residents for giving me the honor of serving the town of Bladensburg community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lundy. Did you want to stay there and do your report also, or that's okay? All right, thank you so much. Again, we appreciate your service and look forward to being able to honor you in the coming weeks. And Councilmember Mendoza couldn't be here with us tonight, and I ask that everyone just keep his family in your prayers. He did lose his dad, and I can't even imagine losing a parent. I'm just not even able to process that, and just saying it hits you in the heart. So if you could just keep him in your prayers. I know his dad lived out of the country, but they still were very close. He's always been close with his parents, keeping in close contact with them. And at this time, I'll proceed with an update on October's monthly activities. It was a busy month, as Chief said, so I won't be redundant with things that he's already mentioned, but just want to call out our gratitude to Monumental Sports Foundation for once again supporting the Kaboom Playground at Bladensburg Community Center. The ribbon cutting for that new playground was October 1st. And additionally, we had the elections on October 4th, and I want to take the time to thank everyone who participated in helping to make that process happen for our democracy, from staff to the volunteers on the Board of Election Supervisors. Thank you all. And again, thank you to all the voters who came out either to cast their ballots in person or whether they mailed them in. Another item that was mentioned, of course, was Our Streets, Our Future, the anti-bully prevention march. With that in mind, I do want to just thank Ms. Susan McCutcheon for keeping Dr. Cliff Thomas's spirit alive, along with Adrian Semango. They've really stepped up to keep We Lead by Example going, to help our young people have positive outlets through martial arts, so they learned how to control themselves, defend themselves, but it's also a positive channel because, as you know, kids are having a tough time in COVID and don't necessarily have a positive outlet, and so through that particular school, it gives them a good way to just channel their energy. Of course, I was at the Maryland Municipal League Fall Conference, had the opportunity to sit in on a session regarding cybersecurity, and want to sit down and talk further with the town administrator about that, because there are some things that we have a responsibility to do as a town government, maintaining records, maintaining personal information for residents and so forth. They talked a lot about examples that were big, such as when the pipeline further west from here was compromised earlier this year, the Colonial Pipeline, that is, through a cyber attack. But then they brought it home because Maryland, too, had suffered some challenges. Leonardtown, which is a small town in southern Maryland, they had a cyber attack scare along with Baltimore. And so we have to be thoughtful about what happens if innocently a staff member clicks on some malware and it's launched, and how that affects our networks. I know through my full-time job, we have to do know before you go ever so many months to just proactively keep staff thinking diligently about being careful, not to just open an email from an unfamiliar source, not thinking, because it's happened to us where my teammates have said, Keisha, I got this weird email from you saying you need me to purchase gift cards. Remember? So you have to know these things are not legitimate. And it's just so easy and moving quickly at the pace of life to just make that innocent mistake and then have some detrimental effects as a result. Another great opportunity was to sit in on the Large City Forum and just hear some of the ideas from the bigger communities like Greenbelt and Bowie on how they're handling things such as distributing ARPA funding. And then I did preside over the first Maryland Mayors Association meeting as president of that organization, and actually invited Dr. Robert Blaine to come in and talk further with the mayors about how to utilize data, your census data tracks, to make good decisions and build good plans with the ARPA funding so that you have a robust plan that really addresses the needs of your community. And that was very well received. The Shabbat Ministry food giveaway was mentioned. The computer donation was, again, awesome, as Chief explained. The PGCMA Board of Directors did meet on October 14th, and it was agreed at that point, I don't know if they've changed their minds, but we do need an opportunity to present our legislative priorities to our county, state, and federal officials. They were still honing in on doing that in December. The challenge is due to COVID, determining whether or not that will be in person versus virtual. I think they're still leaning toward virtual, but as of the board meeting, they hadn't shared a specific date. And then, I'm sorry, one thing I wanted to mention, and I'll make copies and put this in each of your boxes, but MML did have us vote on the 2022 recommended priorities. What we approved was full and permanent restoration of municipal highway user revenues. We advocated for that a few years ago, and we were successful. However, that was giving us 85% of pre-recession levels and only for 5 fiscal years. So we're going to advocate that this funding is restored to the full amount and that it's a permanent thing, so we're not having to keep coming back lobbying that for that year after year. And as Chief mentioned before, not to the full extent of your report, Chief, but preservation of local authority on police accountability boards and charging committees is something that we'll advocate for in the upcoming legislative session. Part of the police reform suite of legislation that passed in 2021 requires each county to have a police accountability board and establish an administrative charging committee. Essentially, what we're saying is if we have municipal police, we shouldn't have to leave that up to the county. We as a municipal body should be able to establish our own accountability and charging committees on the local level. And so that'll be a major priority for the upcoming session. And then the last item that I just want everyone to be aware of, it was not so much a legislative priority, but more so, they called it a, trying to think of the exact word, it didn't rise to the level of being a legislative committee. It was a recommended strategic initiative. And for that item, the municipal body did agree to focus that on climate change initiatives, which I know Councilmember Lundy is very familiar with because she's been highly engaged in the MML board. So again, that's just a strategic initiative, not the level of a priority. I did find great value in the lobbying one-on-one session, 101, sorry, it was the Shark Tank style, and be happy to share my notes on that just because we have daytime jobs. We're not, like, I didn't spend 8 years going to undergrad, graduate school to learn how to be an elected official. We're volunteers doing this and trying to help our community. It can be very intimidating to have to testify before a committee in Annapolis. And so with this particular session, it really broke down, taking away the intimidation and helping you to feel comfortable, just getting your point across, telling your story without the anxiety of, oh my gosh, I'm testifying before, X number of delegates or X number of senators. And that truly was very effective because they were very candid in their criticisms. The other items that were mentioned, but I just want to touch upon was, as Councilmember Rout noted, we did, our little working group, we did hold the 2 domestic violence events, and for the first time wanted to dedicate one particular program completely in Spanish. And the reason for that is just supported by the data. There's been so many increases in domestic violence calls, generally due to COVID, but one of the challenges from law enforcement is that our Spanish-speaking community don't always feel safe calling for help, and that is a problem. And so we felt very strongly it didn't make sense to have a program where we're interpreting and then we have someone speak and then we interpret that, but really to show this program is dedicated to the Latino community with speakers who look like you, who you can relate to, who can share. One woman was a survivor sharing her story. It resonated so well. And in getting the stats from our marketing coordinator, over 700, almost 800 people have been reached through that Spanish town hall. That's remarkable. And through the one that was held the following night for English speakers, almost 400 people have been reached. So I want to thank Diamond for helping with the marketing. Of course, Officer Tanksley always does a great job, and he brought in a survivor who trusted him to share her story. And I just hope that it really connected with the right people to encourage them to ask for help. And as a follow-up, we are having a resource fair so that people who did watch can come out and talk to the agencies that were represented on the panel and actually get help getting out of the situations that they're in. And Colmar Manor will be hosting that in their bigger town hall space so we can social distance, have privacy for those who may need to have some one-on-one conversations in order to get the necessary help. And then last but not least, and I'll attach copies of this with the written report, PEPCO has teamed up with United Negro College Fund, and they are offering up to $25,000 scholarships renewable for 3 years. And so I'll include the information, the handout, and I'll post it on social media as well. And if we can include it in the e-blast, this is a huge opportunity for those who may want to go to college and may not have the funds to have that opportunity. So definitely wanted to share that information. And that concludes my report for the month of October. At this time, we have moved through the agenda, and I would ask for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Blunt. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Rout. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, let it be known by the saying of aye. Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. We're adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Good night.